Dear learners, welcome back to SWAYAM NPTEL course on library automation and networking. This is week 8, module number 8, information search and retrieval. And this particular title of module is talking about information search and retrieval, information retrieval models, as well as the performance evaluation of information retrievals. Dear learners, we have seen almost all the areas of library automations, how you are performing automations in the housekeeping operations, and what are the services you normally provide, and what are the different types of networking systems. All this we have elaborately discussed in the classes which we have discussed. And in this particular module, we will be discussing more about information search as well as information retrieval. Dear learners, as we know that we are living in an information ocean where we need to search for information and find out the relevant information from a pool of information systems. So how do you make a search? As we have seen the search techniques, such as we should know before searching we should have a planning. After planning we should have a search in such a way that we should have a proper planning, as well as search tools we need to use, search strategies we have to plan, as well as we have to use search techniques. So in this particular module, since we have already discussed about search techniques, tools and strategies, we will be discussing more about information search and retrieval in this particular module. So we will be discussing about some of the definitions of information search and retrieval, and what are the different types of information retrieval models, and also we will be discussing more about evaluating a particular information retrieval models. So when we talk about information retrieval or IR, during 1950, Calvin Moose, he has found this particular terminology as information retrieval. So it is something like it is part of information or communication process in which we need to find out something from a pool of information system. So it is a kind of a sequence of action where we are finding out something that we call it as information retrieval. And when we talk about any of the information retrieval system, the core of that information retrieval is providing such kind of a query and getting the result that is very much relevant, or what is the requirement of your actual query that is meeting with that particular query as an answer, that we call it as information retrieval. So whenever there is a information need arises, that has to be fulfilled, and this kind of information fulfill come only through information search and retrieval. When we talk about information retrieval, as we know that it is not something we are looking only for in one direction. So sometimes people will look for an image, and sometimes people will look for an audio, video or text format or image format, whatever it may be. So different forms of information search and retrieval can be possible. So based on that, we should have a proper mechanism. How do we make such kind of a search as well as retrieval system? In order to get an efficient information search and also the retrieval, we need to prepare accordingly and do your searches, and should have a proper idea about how the retrieval system works. So there are many definitions for information retrieval. As the person who found this particular terminology, Calvin Moose, himself has made a definition. According to him, information retrieval is searching and retrieval of information from storage according to a specific subject. So that is what the definition given by Calvin Moore. Or according to B.C. Vickery, the definition of information retrieval is, it is essentially concerned with the structure of the operations of the device to select documentary information from the store of information in response to several questions. So from this particular definition, you could understand that there will be a search process, there will be a retrieval process, and there will be a database in between. That means we should have an information system for having a search and to get a retrieval of answers for that. So the technique of searching, interpreting and getting the result of that particular query from a large amount of stored data, we call it as information retrieval. This is the definition given by McGraw-Hill Dictionary. So it is something like you are finding out a fact or a relevant information from a storage medium. So when you are talking about information retrieval, as we know that whatever search query you are making, or we call it as search string, so when you make such kind of a searches, the information retrieval based on the capacity or the efficiency of information retrieval database, according to that particular database, how efficient it is, based on that your retrieval comes. So the relevancy of retrieval is majorly based on your search as well as the capacity or the performance of that particular information retrieval system or the databases. So you can look at this particular picture, as we have discussed that there will be a query or there will be a search. Once you are going for a search, you should have a place to search that will be having some kind of a document collection. From that document collection, as we know that if you are talking about a traditional digital library system or an institution repository system, where you will be having a database. In that particular database you will be giving some kind of a query, and that particular database will be having a lot of documents, and it is not necessarily that you need all the documents. You have some set of documents based on your query, that much only need to be recovered or need to be retrieved when you make a specific query. So users always have some kind of a query in their mind. That query will come in terms of a text or a keyword or a search string. So that will be going to that particular database in which it will be searching, and then it retrieves documents. The documents retrieved, sometimes it can be structured format or unstructured format, and sometimes it can be relevant or irrelevant. So these are all based on the capacity or the efficiency of the information system as well as the search query made by that particular user. So components of information retrieval is always having two parts. One is document part, the other one is user parts. So user parts, when you talk about user parts, user will have a query. That means he has some idea in his mind. So he will be coming with a query, and that query or problem has to be represented. So once it is represented, that means in terms of a keyword, so that will be given to a particular place where we call it as user interface or search interface, whatever it may be. You will be searching on that in terms of a query. But the other side, as we said that to make a database we should have some kind of a document in that particular database. So once you have seen that these particular documents are available in a particular database, that means it is a collection of document, then collection of document, we call it as database. So in between we have acquisition and representation. That means you are acquiring something as in the form of a document, and then you are representing. In the representing means we are organizing such kind of an information in a particular way. Say for example, when you are talking about online public access catalog, normally we include all the bibliographical data or metadata, whatever we call. So this will be part of that particular document to identify them very easily. So such kind of an organization will be there in that particular file, which we call it as associated terminologies or metadata, whatever it may be. So now we have user side as well as a document side. Both the sides, when user make a query in a particular manner, so that query will be having some kind of a matching system in the document system. So this matching, whenever there is a matching happens, then it retrieves some of the information which are available or document which are available in the documentation system. So through that you will be getting the result. So when we talk about such kind of result, the result can be relevant or irrelevant. So for getting such relevant and irrelevant, there are many reasons for that. We will be discussing about that in detail. And once it is retrieved, as I told you that suppose if it is a retrieved item is not relevant or irrelevant, then the user has to make some changes in the query again. That means it go back. So user have to make some kind of a feedback out of that. So either he has to make a changes in the query, or he has to modify his own search queries, or whatever idea he has or plan he has, accordingly he may change that keywords, or maybe he is not searching in the relevant database also. So there are many possible reasons for that. So this search and research will be keep on going, and according to that the refine of a result will come, so that you will be getting a relevant information from the database. So now when we talk about information retrieval, so how we make such kind of a database, which we can call it as an information retrieval system. So there should be some kind of a framework for preparing or developing such kind of an information system, or that kind of framework we call it as information retrieval models, because all this information retrieval process have been prepared or developed based on some kind of a guidelines. We call it as some kind of a framework which is very much required, because we need documents, we need user query, and there should be a matching, and there should be a retrieval, and there should be a feedback mechanism. So for all this there is a pattern, or we can call it as a framework. So there are many models in which people have suggested that you can use this particular model based on your query or based on your requirement or the objective, whatever it may be. So based on that, there are many models that we call it as information retrieval models. So it is a kind of a construct design to help the users to understand a complex system and to improve the search results. So when we talk about information retrieval models, so it is something like a defined framework where it will be talking about how this particular model can be created, or how this particular user have to make its query, and how this retrieval system happen. So all things about a particular information retrieval will be talking in a IR model or information retrieval model. So there are different categories of information retrieval models, such as conceptual, physical, analog, and also mathematical. These are the major categories of information retrieval models, and also we can divide them into two, as one is traditional model, the other one is interactive model. So when we talk about web based information retrieval system, it is a kind of interactive model, whereas there are some static databases where we make such kind of a search, so that we can call it as traditional mechanism or traditional information retrieval models. So based on that also, information retrieval models can be divided into two, that is, one is interactive, the other one is traditional. And again there are many other categories, say for example classical, non-classical, and also alternative. So whatever models you use or whatever models you select, so each and every model should have some kind of a basic components. The one component which we have seen is document, and the other one is user, and there should be a matching and retrieval. So there should be a document representation, and there should be a query representation, document representation as document collection, query representation from the user side, and there will be a retrieval function. So when we talk about information retrieval model, there will be major three components. Whatever models you are using or whatever models are proposed, this will have document representation, query representation, as well as retrieval function. And based on that, we can have different types of information retrieval models, such as classical IR models, non-classical IR models, alternative IR models, Boolean IR models, vector space model, probabilistic model, linguistic and knowledge based models, statistical models, cognitive models, Boolean models, and also vector models. So these are all the different types, or we can say that there are n number of such kind of a models developed by individuals as well as team. These are major IR models which are highly used in the scenario of information retrieval process. So when we talk about classical IR models, these are all simple, in which, as the name indicates, which are classical in form, where users don't need to have such kind of a complex procedure to search for a particular document. Boolean, vector, and probabilistic models are examples for the classical models, and there are non-classical IR models, in which is having a complex model, which are based on the principles rather than similarity, Boolean operators. Non-classical information retrieval models, it is just opposite to the classical information retrieval models. So when we talk about non-classical information retrieval models, it is completely opposite to classical IR models. Such kind of IR models working based on the principles other than similarity, probability, and Boolean operations. There are many examples for non-classical IR models, such as information logical model, situation theory model, interaction model. These are the examples for non-classical IR models. And the other one is alternative models. It is some or other way we can say that it is a kind of an enhancement form of classical IR systems, where some kind of specific technique will be used to retrieve the information. Say for example, cluster model, fuzzy model, LSI or latent semantic indexing model, etc. So these are all the major three categories we can make in information retrieval model as different types. So this picture shows that the similar way how we will be having the similar components or the basic components of an information retrieval system. As we have seen that there are many such kind of retrieval models, I will name only the major information retrieval models such as cognitive model, that is inverse interactive cognitive model, in which it is proposed by Peter Ingwersen in the year 1992 and 1996. So you can see this picture how this information retrieval model is prepared or developed, whereas the information will be or the query will be made as information object, and there will be an interface or intermediary where people can make a search, and there will be an information retrieval system. And the other side, there are many factors like social or organizational or environmental factors which will be affecting the individual objective or goal or query of a particular individual, such as problem or goal, uncertainty, information need, information behavior. So based on all this user behavior, the search can be different from one to the other, or information retrieval will be differ from one to other. The next one is probabilistic IR. As the name indicates, you are making some kind of a probabilistic study. That means the information retrieval based on some kind of a probability. So such kind of models we call it as probabilistic IR models. It has its own advantages and disadvantages, where it has a strong theoretical background or basis. Optimal ranking scheme will be followed, ranks by possibilities, predictions also will be matter in this particular category. So there are many disadvantages which are related to probabilistic, because you are making some kind of an assumption. So definitely sometimes the assumption can be right or wrong also. And the other method is Boolean model, as we have seen that how Boolean operators are working, and or not. These three are the major Boolean operators when we wanted to make a broaden the search, and or can be used. When we use not option or operator, you can narrow down the searches. So broadening and narrow downing the searches and get the desired result in an information retrieval system, we can use Boolean model of information retrieval model. Other one is vector space model, which normally talks about this particular Boolean operators, and what are the disadvantages which are having with Boolean operators will be eliminated by using vector model. It is also called as term vector model or vector processing model. So queries and documents as vectors in an m dimensional space, whereas m indicates the number of terms. This is a picture of vector space model, and it has its own advantages and disadvantages. And when we compare Boolean operators, this model will be much more sophisticated, where it uses all the issues which are related to Boolean operators will be solved or eliminated by using vector space model. Dear learners, these are all the major models which are highly used in the scenario of information retrieval, where based on your requirement and based on the nature or the characteristics of users, you will be able to make use of such kind of models to adopt to your information retrieval system. And it is not that much easy that sometimes you need to make a combination of 2 or more IR models to make your information retrieval system perfect. And now we look into the how we will be able to assess or evaluate the performance of a particular information retrieval system. There are many factors which are associated with evaluation of information retrieval system. So when we talk about IR systems, as we know that there are major 3 components. One is document part, other one is user query parts, and there will be a retrieval part. So based on all these 3 factors, there are many criteria in which we can make to evaluate what are the components or what are the measures or the evaluation criteria to be followed to make a particular information retrieval system perfect. So you can see the picture here where information retrieval system will have all 3 components. So when we talk about different aspects of the evaluation criteria, one of the major criteria is effectiveness of retrieval. How effective a particular user is getting his answer for his or her query. So the effectiveness of retrieval is one of the major component for evaluating any information retrieval system. And the second one is quality of the system. So how qualitatively, how efficiently you made that particular information system, based on that the users are making his query and he is getting the desired result. Effectiveness of retrieval or retrieval evaluation, as well as quality of the system, where we call it as performance evaluation. So both are two major important evaluation criteria. Apart from this, satisfaction of the user, relevance of the content, coverage of the content in which that particular database having documents, recency, functionality, speed of the search as well as retrieval, availability of that particular information system, access, and also the usability of the content in which is retrieved by the information system. So these are all the major criteria or factors which are largely affecting to evaluate a particular information retrieval system, whether it is good or efficient or not. Let us look into each and every point in detail. The first one is effectiveness of retrieval. So what do you mean by effectiveness of retrieval? As the name indicates, the retrieval, when a particular user gives a query, the information in which he requires and the information in which the particular database given has to be matched. That means there are information requirement which are very much relevant to that particular user when he or she makes a query, and the result in which a particular user gets for a query can be relevant or non-relevant. There are two categories, but it can come in a combination of 4 types, such as relevant and retrieved, relevant and not retrieved, non-relevant and retrieved, non-relevant and not retrieved. That means when a particular user make a query, there are chances of retrieving an information from that information system, such as whatever he requests, there is a relevant information inside the database, but that person is not getting. And sometimes there are information in that particular database that are relevant and he is getting the relevant. Sometimes there are non-relevant information in that particular database, he is getting access to that. Sometimes non-relevant information which is not retrieved by the system. So 4 types of categories or retrieval are part of efficiency of a retrieval system, where a user should get all the relevant information and all should retrieve, and there should be no relevant items available. Even if it is available, that non-relevant items should not be retrieved. So in total, a user should get all relevant items which are available in the database that should be retrieved. So that can be measured in terms of its efficiency, and which is normally calculated based on the precision and recall. There are definitions for precision and recall, such as, when we talk about recall, the formula used for finding out the recall value is number of relevant items retrieved divided by total number of relevant items in that particular collection. So percentage of these two factors we call it as recall, and the precision value will be calculated based on the formula P is equal to number of relevant items retrieved divided by total number of items retrieved. So this is the two formulas, we call it as precision and recall. So whenever the precision value is high or the recall value is high, when both the values are high, we can say that our goal has been achieved. So always there should be high recall and high precision values, so that we can measure the efficiency of the system. And the next evaluation criteria is quality of the system. So what do you mean by the quality of the system? In terms of indexing speed, in terms of search speed, and the coverage in which that particular database holding, and also expressiveness of the query language. So these are all the different types of factors which are affecting quality of the system. And third one is satisfaction of the user. As we have seen that when a precision and recall value is high, normally the user will be satisfied. So the percentage of user satisfaction level decides the capacity or the efficiency of a particular information retrieval system, so that it is also one of the criteria to measure the effectiveness of a particular information system. So dear learners, with this I am concluding this particular session. I hope that you could understand what is information search and retrieval, what is the definition of information search and retrieval, which is very much required in terms of retrieving a particular document, and what are the different components. As we have seen that any information retrieval model you take, there will be some kind of major components which are part of the information retrieval system, such as user component, we call it as query, as well as the document representation where it is having a database of documents, and there will be a retrieval system in which relevant or irrelevant document will be retrieved based on the query made by particular user. And dear learners, whenever you plan to prepare or develop any kind of information retrieval system, you may have to follow some of the models or the framework which have been already developed, so that your information retrieval system will be effective. And apart from that, once you developed information retrieval system, you should check the efficiency of that particular information retrieval system in such a way that it is having a good precision and recall value, and users are satisfied with the queries and how the information retrieval is happening, efficiency of the system, efficiency of the document, as well as all the retrieval items are relevant, and whatever relevant items are there in that particular information system is retrieved on time and retrieved based on the queries made by the users. Dear learners, I hope that you will be able to make such kind of an effective information retrieval system with making all these points in memory and keeping in view that you will be able to make such kind of a information retrieval practically using all such kind of a criteria. Thank you.